This is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings and all things Chicago Blackhawks. With your hosts, Jordan Linscott, David Barnhouse, Nick LePage, and Tim Stompanato. This is the Stick Blade Podcast. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. It is your place for all things Detroit Red Wings, all things Chicago Blackhawks, and news around the NHL. Tonight has been a fun one because, we delayed the show one day, and this seems to always happen when we record on Mondays. News breaks Tuesday morning, so we waited a day because we had a rumor that something was going to happen, and it's kind of a big one. The Chicago Blackhawks announced that they have a new GM in charge. Kind of a big deal. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. I'm going to be your host for tonight, Jordan Linscott, and for my co-hosts, Tim Stompanato, David Barnhouse, and Nick LePage. Everybody, welcome to the show, fellas. What big news?
Big news.
I was really hoping they would do the announcement with a little video package, and then the GM office door had a piece of tape next to it that says interim, and he just peels the tape off. Hey, here I am.
I've seen a lot of assistant to the general manager things where it's the whiting out to
I love that.
Oh yeah, it's a new era in Chicago. It's exciting times for the Hawks, so I can't wait to actually go into detail about it.
Yeah, that's going to be the big one today for me.
I kind of figured it would be him, but
it made the most, especially with wanting to wrap it up before the trade deadline. You want somebody that at least knows your prospect pool, knows your roster, knows what you've got realistically. It would have been an uphill battle for anyone else coming in.
Exactly.
Speaking of uphill battles, I kind of want to just get this out of the way. Let's talk about what went down with the Hawks and the Wings this past week on the score sheet. The Wings were pretty boring. They only had one game. The Hawks had two games, and
boring. We had a football game.
I guess that is true. It was boring because there was only one game. The game was exciting, just the trading back and forth. Like you said, it was a football game.
That's awesome.
The Wings had one game this week. It was against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and like David said, it was a football game. The Leafs won 10-7.
The Leafs squeaked out a last-minute field goal right at the end there.
Yeah, you hate to see it. Hail Mary.
The thing that's crazy to me is the Wings were up, I think it was 5-1 or 6-1 at one point. How do you blow that big of a lead?
Well, didn't the Wings blow that against Tampa at the beginning of the season? Didn't we blow a big lead then too? But now it happened to the other team against us.
It did happen to the Leafs. It happened with us with the Leafs earlier. We were up 4-1 at the last 10 minutes of the third, and we gave up 4 straight.
Shoot, that was the Leafs. Oh,
I just thought it was so funny though.
That said, the Leafs are built to score. They're not necessarily built to do anything other than score because Morgan Riley can't be on the ice all the time. So they did their job. I'll give it to them.
The Hawks, you guys kind of had an interesting game like that as well. You guys played the New Jersey Devils and the St. Louis Blues this week, and the New Jersey game, that one was almost a football game.
Yeah, we wasted all of our goals in the New Jersey. Now, granted, we needed them, winning 8-5, but we could have saved a couple for the Blues game. I always hate getting shut out by the Blues.
Sucks to see Mitch Trubisky give up a safety, but at least you got that 2-point conversion.
Yeah, it was a Big Ten style football game for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one.
Yeah, a double hat trick game for Hagel and Kane. So
that's
it's
so
a
cool.
Rare comedy. I think the last time it happened for the Blackhawks was 2003 with Eric Daze and I can't recall the other name, but yeah. So it was a high scoring affair, just like the Leafs and Red Wings had earlier this week. So quite the entertaining games for our two teams, huh?
And I think the Devils game, that was Lankinen's first game back off of injured reserve for months. And so I'm glad we were able to get him a win.
It wasn't pretty, but it's a win.
And again, the guy's got to get back into the swing of things. Might as well be against the New Jersey Devils. It might as well be on a game where you let up 5 goals. But because arguably Fleury had the better game on Sunday and lost 4-0.
Yeah, that's hockey for you. It's just stupid.
That's hockey.
That's hockey.
The Sunday game, I was so depressed. Like they
'Cause you were
literally
at
cared.
that.
I was at that game. Like it was so depressing because like the first period, the Hawks were running over the St. Louis Blues. And I'm like, okay,
100%.
they're gonna set the pace. They came out really good, and then St. Louis, like they didn't take the game over. I didn't think, but I felt like the Hawks just kind of took their foot off the gas.
Which is a reoccurring theme.
That had to been the most expensive nap you've ever paid for, Jordan. The second and third period, it's like holy shit, snooze fest. But yeah, I mean that's the Blues. It's a complete. It's there. That shows where the Hawks are at. It's a team that is just utterly
They're the
dominating.
better
them.
team. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I talked about it at the start of the show. Let's jump into this one. The big topic for tonight, if we're all being honest, this is the biggest thing we're going to talk about. The Chicago Blackhawks have a new official general manager, Kyle Davidson. He's not the interim anymore. He's the man in charge of the ship. Now, the organization said, and I know they've said it before, but they said they're going to do a rebuild. Tim and Nick, what are your guys' initial thoughts?
I love it.
Yeah.
I think he knows the team the best. He was able to assess the team since Bowman got relieved of his duties in October. So yeah, honestly, I think he has a tall task ahead of him. He has so many things to go ahead. I mean, the trade deadline's in 3 weeks. You use that rebuild word, which that scares a couple of the veterans. They're like, oh, do I want to be here? Do I want to be here? I don't know. But it scared me earlier in the week. I think it was Mario Terabasi reported that the Blackhawks are wondering if they can make this big type of a change. I'm like, oh shit, they're hiring Jeff Greenberg.
Yep.
So I think, but honestly, I think it was the smartest and safest decision. Kyle Davidson's been in the organization for 10 plus years now. He's not a Bowman guy. He is a Norm MacGyver guy who Bowman tried to kind of dwindle out of the situation.
Big Norm MacGyver fan, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, he's a smart hockey mind. He's over in Seattle as like the assistant GM. So he's played an important role. Yeah, it was one of those guys. So he's not under Stan Bowman's umbrella. He's kind of just stuck around and climbed the ropes in the Blackhawks organization. So I'm excited for him. He's got a tall task ahead though, because there's a lot to go on.
I have to wonder, because you're right. The reports came out last week of like, hey, we were meeting with veteran players and like people to discuss, can we sell this to them? Can we sell this to the fans? I wonder if it was less about the GM and more about the GM's plan. That David's, if they say like, what's your vision? What's your plan? It's like, because he said, we're doing a rebuild. It could be 3 to 5 years, but we're not where we need to be. It's not a secret of where we're at and we need to get there. I think that they had to check buy-in with Kane and Toews. I think you have to gauge buy-in with the fan base. Can they withstand a 3 to 5 year rebuild? And frankly, I'm with you. I think we can't afford not to. I think he's been unbiased and very clear on like our prospect, who we have in the prospect pool. He's shown patience and development above rushing somebody in for the sake of getting them up there. He's young. He's been very vocal about transparency and ushering in and leading the charge in a new age of hockey culture and just organizational and workplace culture in general. He's saying all the right things for me. Like he's hitting all the right notes. It sounds like he's going to be restructuring hockey ops. Expect to see Brian Campbell somewhere in there. Those two have been joined at the hip a lot of the time. I don't know. I'm very excited. I know it's been blowing up a lot on Twitter. There's a lot of people who aren't happy about this. I don't know what people want realistically. I mean, this is where we're at. We're not going to get somebody in that's going to magically, we're not going to get in Yzerman that flips a switch and says, all right, it's time to be good again. And even then, how many years now has it been that he's been laying a plan?
3 now.
You want somebody who can come in and say, I have a vision, I have a plan, I'm going to surround myself with the people to do it. It's going to suck.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it is.
But
yeah.
like,
we had one of the worst seasons ever a couple years ago.
It was, and I would not be surprised if we have a season like that in a year or two, but at least there's a vision now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we used it with the Red Wings a lot last year, the word direction. the Blackhawks never really had one. They were rebuilding 2 off seasons ago, and then this off season they went all in. And I think it was Danny Wirtz today. He's like, we're going to stand by. We're going to stick with the plan. And I thought that was big. It was nice that they came out up front and said, this is a rebuild.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, you guys, like, I know they said rebuild a couple of seasons ago, but I don't feel like you ever really committed to it.
No,
Like,
that's
Yeah, no, we didn't. That's
like we traded away like
Like Tatar was gone, Mrazek was
Well,
gone.
yeah, we traded away those key pieces for draft picks.
to be fair, we couldn't. Yeah, to be fair, we couldn't with
really
Kane and
have
Toews' contracts locked in the way they were, with Keith where he was at, with like we didn't have a true capacity to do a strip down to the studs rebuild. We had to do a modified rebuild that was closer to retool, but like with Toews out last year, we devoted a lot of time to getting a bunch of rookie guys up there. Like you were basically fielding a rebuild team with Patrick Kane. And we exceeded expectations and then blew everything up.
got too big for our bridges. I mean,
exactly.
that's Stan Bowman's mentality though. Like you knew, like even when he said the word rebuild, it's like, oh man, this like time's near. But like you sense the Blackhawks had a little success. And it's like, oh, he's gonna the minute like we went on a little run last year, it's like, oh man, like this team was close. Stan's gonna like be kicking himself for not adding a piece. So you know what he did this offseason? Added fucking like 7.
We went into that season with no real goalie.
Yeah, and it worked
People
out.
forget, like that's the thing. Like we had an unknown Lankinen. Colin Delia was set to be our starter. Him and Malcolm Subban were gonna rotate, and it's like, I guess we're gonna see. Let's put Hagel up. Have some fun, kid. Like you're a 6th round pick.
We were joking that we were gonna be fighting for the bottom of the barrel,
and we barely missed the playoffs. Realistically,
which was a knife to the back for your team.
Yeah. Oh, it was the absolute worst thing that could have happened.
It's put you guys in a far worse place.
Well, I think Stan Bowman did that.
And I think an important note too with today's press conference is you did mention the 3 to 5, Tim, but the 3 to 5 year plan. But Kyle Davidson kind of stopped himself in his tracks when he mentioned like 3 to 5 years, and then he was like, I don't want to put a time frame on this. Like we know it's gonna rebuilds. We're Chicago fans and Detroit fans. We know rebuilds take forever. That's basically been our whole life. So
the Lions are still rebuilding.
Yeah, I mean,
been alive since '88.
Oh no.
So yeah, I mean it's a new era. It's scary. I like that Brian Campbell is gonna have a big role with.
I do too.
He was part of that advisory committee. I wonder if they're going to get Olczyk and Sharp in there. Sharp's coaching at Vermont, though, right?
Hossa is. I would be surprised if Hossa is not involved in some way, and I definitely think that Eddie's going to be involved.
Yeah, because he's the youngest GM in the NHL now. Like,
yeah, he's 33.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the connections that some of these guys do, so he's going to need.
That said, awesome.
No,
not using the same old boys club of like recycling Pierre Chiarelli,
Arizona,
and getting Brian Burke back out of retirement. Hey, what's Milbury doing?
No, like I do love it, but like he needs a group surrounding him.
Exactly.
Like, the people that with the connections, like Marian Hossa, he knows everybody in the league. Patrick Sharp, he's
Eddie Olczyk.
Yeah, Eddie O. He was a former assistant GM or head coach.
He was definitely a head coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. You surround yourself with people that you don't surround yourself with the same group of people. You surround yourself. A successful team is, hey, what skills do you have? I don't have those. Great. You're going to complement that. Like if he really does restructure hockey ops, and we know that there is no president of hockey ops anymore. Davidson is reporting directly to Danny Wirtz in part to assess, exactly the chain of command and who's responsible for what. I love it. And now if they continue to restructure, I didn't realize that our analytics department under Stan Bowman was primarily third party, like hired out, like consulting firms and whatnot. We didn't really have a strong in-house analytics department. And yet I think we're going to see that moving forward with Davidson.
Yeah, it's all bit. I mean, that whole Blackhawks organization was basically going off the eye test.
Which, listen, I want a hybrid.
Yeah.
Like, I love the eye test. I love old school and like the, hockey mind of things, but we need to get up with the times.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why the teams like the Lightning are so far ahead. They have a high-tech analytics department. I thought it was, I mean, Yzerman too, but he also is one that relies on.
I mean, right. Like Yzerman is someone that has never rested on your laurels. There was a period of time where the Hawks redefined hockey and the strategy and what people were rebuilding their teams around the style of the Hawks. And the problem when you're the person driving it, you get complacent. You like, okay, we set the tone, we did it. It's hard to keep momentum when it's you that everybody is basing their momentum off of. Yzerman has been remarkable at staying ahead of the curve, staying well read on what's going on. That is a mind that blows my mind from a strategic standpoint. This is exactly what the Hawks need, is a hard, even if it's not a rebuild, a hard rebuild in the sense of roster, but a hard rebuild in the sense of the mindset and the structure and the plan.
I mean, it almost kind of reminds me of what the Leafs did when they brought Kyle Davidson as like a general manager of their club. Like, you went from having a guy who had been around the league forever to this young kid who was completely bringing a different look at your club, was going to bring a lot of the modern aspects, like, advanced analytics to the table, and kind of getting like a hybrid system for a club to build. Now, granted, I don't wish the Toronto Maple Leafs cap hell on anybody, but
and I just hope that we get a better negotiator than Dubas, frankly. But yeah, no, I definitely, it's a new age. It's exciting. And thank God we didn't give it to Peter Chiarelli.
One thing I think really needs to be noted, though, like the Hawks said they want to rebuild, right? I feel like for the last 3 years of Stan Bowman's general manager position, he was basically doing his best Ken Holland impression, as we call it, the rebuild on the fly or retooling on the fly. The NHL has shown time and time again that does not work. It does not foster long-term success.
It does for some team, like
the Bruins. The Bruins are probably the
Bruins, Pittsburgh.
But you have to have like a very specific core for that to work.
Yeah, I think that for a long time the Rangers were able to remain relevant and retool.
I mean, the Hawks did it in the early 2010s. I mean,
we completely, after 2010, we lost like half the team, but like it can be done. It is not easy, and you definitely need a clear vision. You need to get lucky and hit on some draft picks, and you've got to have good contract negotiation.
Yeah. Jordan, so I mean, you mentioned it earlier, since we're actually talking about the whole rebuild thing. I'm referencing your text from the group chat earlier. You said the first things first, which I do agree with this. I don't know if it's gonna be the first things first, but you said first things first. Hawks need to prioritize centers hard these next 2 drafts. I agree.
Yeah, I think exactly. We both agree on that.
Yeah, they don't really have any clear top 6 center potential besides Doc. Which I mean, we talked about Reichel, like how I think they're going to give him this off season, but to build off that, I think first things first, you get on the phone, like you have a sit down with Patrick Kane. Like, what do you want? Like, do you want to be here? If you want to be here, what's the contract going to start looking like? Cause he is due for an extension July 14th of this off season. So that's when
he'll be entering his last year.
So that's when they could start talking extension. And I think you need to get ahead of it right now. Like, if Patrick Kane's going to be around, you're building around him. You're giving him what he wants, because he wants to be involved, like we heard it during the interview process. So I think that's your first things first. And then, like he said, we got to address the prospect pool, especially with centers, and which I can not agree more.
I agree with you 100%. I would be surprised if they have not already in the past year had those talks with Kane. Because like Kane knows. Kane can't be looking around at this and being like, yeah, we're like one piece away. Let's go, guys. He has to know where they're at. He knows where they're at in the standings for sure, but he has to know where they're at talent-wise and product-wise. It certainly feels like from interviews and clips that clips that I've watched and like articles that I've seen, that he wants to be a part of the solution. I think that he should definitely have a voice in the room as an elder statesman on the team and like a clear hockey mind, especially I think he's going to be a GM someday. I really do. But to get his perspective, but I definitely think he's going to want to be around. I don't see him as of yet being a cup chaser. I don't know. It just doesn't fit the bill of who he has always carried himself as. That could change. And it could even be at the deadline. Hey, let's, next year's deadline, let's trade you to a team and then we'll sign you again in the, like something like that.
They had Twan Vermette special.
It works. It happens. Get a first round pick and then sign him again. Like whatever. The real question for me is going to be Toews. Because regardless whether he stays, whether they both stay, whatever, whether he doesn't, if he doesn't retire, that's going to be the first time that those two don't have a matching contract.
Yeah, that's. I was actually listening to Laz and Powers earlier on my way.
Oh, excellent!
On my way to record. It's like, yeah, you got to have that conversation now. Like they signed the same contract on their entry level, they signed their same contract on their first extension and on their second extension. So. Yeah, I mean, obviously they are two different. Like Kane is still at the top of his game. He may not be scoring goals just because he's got Alex DeBrincat on his line, so that he doesn't really need to. But yeah, I mean, it's a conversation you need to have with the both of them. Like, hey, we're not going to pay you $10.5 million. If you want to stick around, here's a number, and Toews, you're gonna get a lesser number because you kind of have to prove it to us again.
I not even prove it. It's like this is where you're at, and
this is your worth.
I will say, I don't think we should build around Patrick Kane.
No, it's Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, we're building around DeBrincat. We're building around that little core that we talked about previously, and then Kane's your old guard, like that's your guy that's helping guide and like your veteran that ushers everybody in. He's still killing it, but he's no longer he's still the driving force of the team, but he's not the future of the team.
Yeah, I mean we talked. Davidson mentioned the 3 to 5, and then he kind of stopped himself. 3 to 5 years. Kane's 33. That puts him at 36, 38 years old. Yeah, I
believe he's going to play into his 40s, but like
it's not going to be the elite MVP level that we see still night after night, even though he's aging like fine wine. It's not going to be there. Eventually,
even Yager trailed off in his last couple of years.
Eventually, Father Time catches up.
The thing that I think helps you guys with him is that he already has won a few cups.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
He's not at that panic level where he's like, I gotta win now. Like
I gotta prove it.
Like with Matthew Stafford. I mean, there's no way he was winning it with the Lions. They have proven time and time again they can't build a team around him. And when we were getting yet another head coach and yet another general manager, he was like, I think it's time for me to go. And well deserved. I mean, the dude won a Super Bowl his first year. So
well, and to build on that, I think the other guy that we had previously slated as a trade deadline piece, it sounds more and more like Marc-Andre Fleury wants to stay in Chicago, and he would even be open to another year in Chicago.
What's not to love about that city?
I mean, what's not to love about that whole ordeal? Like, realistically, if we have another year of Fleury on a cheaper deal than he's got this year, and then Lankinen backing him up again, or even like whatever it is, having Fleury for another year doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I mean, like you said with Kane, I mean, he doesn't need to chase, he doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't need to chase cups. Like, I think he kind of just wants to settle down and end up where he's at.
He doesn't want to uproot his family anymore. Yeah. Like,
I mean, it's for Kane, it's all about legacy.
Yeah.
Like he wants to be like we said last week, I'm not going to go into further detail. He just wants to be the greatest Blackhawk of all time. I think he already is.
I mean,
but
for sure.
Yeah, he wants to cement that. He wants to hold all the leaderboards. He wants to be the number one goal scorer, number one guy in assists, number one in points. He's already got the 3 cups. Then as for Fleury, I mean, he's done it all himself. He's got Vezinas. He's got
3 cups.
Yeah, he's got 3 cups along with Kane. So, I mean, it's a good locker room presence to have, a good leader. Like rebuilds aren't all about having these young guys.
You need
the
some
veteran-
guys like Kane and Fleury and even Toews and whatnot.
Like, why are we preaching to you guys? You guys know this.
Yeah. You guys are the perfect. You guys get rebuilds.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate. Like Lidstrom retired. I feel like he had a few more years in the tank, but I understand why he did it.
For sure.
Datsuk wanted to go home. I don't blame him. Although his home.
Yeah, never mind. No,
Zetterberg had to retire.
He had to. His back injury was a degenerative. So, like, if he kept going, he was just going to have a terrible future. But they were there long enough. Like, Zetterberg was there long enough to really guide Larkin.
Yep.
And the people running the team, like the greatest captain in our history, is the freaking general manager of our team. The people under him are former, quality players that know this team and know this fan base. Like, our team's direction's in good shape. Yes, it was bad for a while. And no offense to Ken Holland, he had some great years, but a lot of his methods of really soaking players in the Griffins and the minors longer than they should, in my opinion. And I think, Jordan, you could probably agree. Like, we would put players down there for much longer than they should be.
At least 2 years longer than they should have been.
Yeah. And I like how Yzerman's been handling it. I mean, Seider didn't play for the Griffins very much.
He played one season with the Griffins. That was it.
Was it a full season?
No, because it ended early because of COVID.
Yeah, that's right. And he went to the Swedish league and lit it up. Edvinsson has been there and is currently doing well. I could see Soderblom and Edvinsson making the team next year. And, the youth movement in just full force.
That said, I think that signing guys like Mark Stahl, bringing in Bobby Ryan last year, even having like Sam Gagne, like, you had Glendening too. Like, you didn't do that like NHL, NHL 22 thing where it's like, okay, I just want a bunch of like entry level, like super, like, no, you had a good balance of veterans, like seasoned locker room guys that knew how to help instill the right culture in that room.
And wanted to come back. Was it Vanek who, like, we traded twice and came back the following season?
Yeah, he was like a fucking boomerang.
Like, and that's for good reason. One, because he likes the team, and two, he wants to help the players develop. Like, unfortunately, some guys don't pan out. Like, I can't think of his name.
I mean, that's Taki.
He's the one.
Michael Rasmussen has not panned out
Michigan.
to expectations, but he's still okay.
And he's doing better.
Yeah.
Who's the guy that was from Michigan State that we got on a?
Taro Hirose.
Yeah, Hirose
Yeah.
like had flashes where he has a very high hockey IQ, and that's what like Gagne and Vanek said, but he's not cut out for the NHL, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what the Hawks approach is going to be. Like, I think Davidson's kind of putting an end to, like, we've seen with the Red Wings. The Red Wings just kind of want to continue the streak. The Hawks we're kind of trying to just continue to
sell tickets
and just make the last out of Kane and Toews and just try to keep scraping into the playoffs. And, maybe they catch wind and catch fire in the playoffs and try to win another cup. But I think it's starting to become realistic that that's not looking likely.
Yeah.
But, I think, I mean, 3 weeks. Kyle Davidson has a tall task ahead. He's got to assess who is part of this future. He has the keys to the car now. Like, this is his team. Like, he's no longer the interim. We've seen him make small trades for Sam Lafferty.
I love the Lafferty move.
Yeah, like Sam Lafferty, Curtis Gabriel. But now he can trade the pieces.
Yep.
So
there are guys that are probably safe. Jones, DeBrincat, Kane.
Jones, DeBrincat, Kane, Doc, Reichel. I think everybody else you're kind of taking calls on.
Yeah.
Hagel. I mean, Hagel is one of those names I don't want gone.
It needs to be a trade where I'm looking at it going, you've got to be kidding.
Yeah. I mean,
Wait, really?
Even Hagel said he's like, I don't blame him if they trade me. Like,
Wait, I'm a 6th rounder.
yeah, I seen the rumors floating around. It's like, oh yeah, I'll take that.
Hagel to you guys is like a Tatar Nikos to us, a fan favorite player that the fans really love, and he might have to go, and it's gonna hurt, but you're gonna get good stuff.
You're
out
gonna
of it.
get
Like,
great returns.
Oh yeah.
like Tatar gave us a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, didn't he?
Yeah, he gave us a 1st in one draft, a 2nd in the draft after that, and then a 3rd the draft after that one.
I think he
Then
could. Oh, sorry, David. Go ahead.
Mrazek gave us.
He gave us a 3rd and I think a 4th from Carolina.
2/3. 2/3.
Was it 2/3? Okay.
Yeah.
And I forget what Nyquist gave us, but it wasn't his highest Tatar. Tatar was
No.
the highest one.
If it's in the best interest, I mean, I'd rather the 1st round pick be next year. I think I don't like this draft at all. I think next year is probably the deeper. It's definitely the deeper draft, and this year is kind of like top 5 loaded, and then it's just like it falls off the cliff. Yeah, I mean, if the trade is worth it, you're getting a trade.
If it's an offer you can't refuse, you take it.
Yeah, you have to. And that's so essentially like to wrap up this Davidson is just like, I think Kane top priority is to talk to Kane top priority. You have 3 weeks to assess who could be a part of this future, who might not be, or maybe who you want to wait and trade in the off season. And then you got he already mentioned it earlier. Like this deadline, we're gonna try to acquire future pieces. Like we're gonna try to acquire players for the future for this team. So it sounds like he's gonna be very active. It sounds like they're ready to be active, and I wouldn't be shocked if we start seeing the dominoes fall in the next week or so, because 3 weeks to the trade deadline.
Very exciting.
I mean, one last note I do want to add. I do hope that the Blackhawks do not do like a full-blown fire sale on their players. We've seen the Edmonton Oilers and the Buffalo Sabres do these sort of like tear it all down, tank for 1st overall picks, hope the 1st overall picks get us back to the promised land. That doesn't work. Chicago honestly needs to take a page out of Detroit's book and look at how the Detroit Red Wings have done their rebuild. That is a rebuild that looks like it's going to have long-term success. Just you trade players who it sucks trading now for futures, but you don't ever trade those guys who are going to keep and instill a good culture in your locker room and help you stay somewhat competitive.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a full offload. I think it's going to be like a dwindling fire at the end of a summer night.
Oh, it's very nice, very vivid.
Yeah. But no, I don't. I think they're gonna get rid of a couple pieces now.
Swoon.
They're not gonna. Yeah, it's not gonna be a complete fire sale this offseason. I think they have some intriguing pieces that they're gonna try to get rid of. But they're not in a hurry to offload them. Like they still have Murphy on. He's extended till 2024, I believe. Jake McCabe, if there's anybody interested in him. Calvin DeHaan, I think he's expiring at the end of this year.
DeHaan's a perfect trade bait piece. Him and Kubalik are the 2 biggest ones in my mind.
And Kubalik, his value kind of sucks. That's the only thing that sucks right now. But
yeah.
I mean, they got some interesting pieces.
I would say the team that we don't seem to talk about that also a couple years back dropped the rebuild word in front of all their fans. The New York Rangers also entered a rebuild, and they went out and their rebuild was like, get rid of a couple pieces and then sign Panarin, hit on a couple of draft picks. But even those draft, like Capo Caco and Lafreniere aren't driving their scoring by any means, but you're getting a new level out of like some of the veterans have kicked it up a notch. Some of their young guys they had in the pipeline came in. They had some good offseason signings and some phenomenal goaltending signings. And so there are ways to make a not full scale rebuild work. And I think the Rangers right now are that picture.
Well, unless you fire the GM that basically did it all.
That's
not the best decision.
No, you're right.
No, yeah. I mean, and also the worst want to sell tickets. So you're not going to see like all the big names. It's going to be interesting to see like the random veterans that come into the Blackhawks just to like, they don't ever have to meet the cap floor because we have quite a few high contracts for that.
Here comes Bobby Ryan.
Yeah, but you're going to see some interesting
Joe
names.
Thornton.
Yeah, Patrick Marleau might strap him back up. Yeah, so interesting. We're gonna have maybe a few jerseys you might want to buy because it's like such a rare commodity.
Yeah, exactly. And we just gotta sign Sam Gagne so he can't score on us anymore.
Yeah, you put up 8 points tonight at the UC.
We're talking about the Hawks rebuild. One player that I kind of want to talk about, and this is kind of minor news, but he's a player who I think the Hawks are going to be looking at to be a player for them after this rebuild's all said and done. Kevin Lankinen right now comes off the injury reserve list. You mentioned earlier he had the win versus the New Jersey Devils. Like, what do you guys think this means for the Hawks? Not even just like in the short term, but like the long term for them. Like, do you think that the Hawks are going to potentially trade Fleury if he wants to be traded, and just sort of let Lankinen ride out the rest of the year as a starter?
It all it all hinges on Fleury, right? I don't see at this point. It doesn't sound like he wants to be traded. It sounds like he's leaning towards staying in Chicago, but like getting Lankinen back definitely helps. I see realistically the rest of this year, Fleury being the starter, Lankinen being the backup. I see them splitting much more, just with the fact that Fleury went like 14 games in a row in the past like month or two. I see this back half them splitting a little more evenly, and letting Soderblom end up being the AHL starter, giving him time to actually develop on North American ice and get his game a little more tightened up. I love it. I mean, I love Lankinen. I think that he has the chops. I don't think he's an all-star, but he's not a Shesterkin who comes in and starts to take over and dominate the league. But I think he's a realistic starter in this league. I think he would be a low 1A. And I mean, from once you're there, I mean, anybody can be anything. If he's got the skills and he keeps being dedicated to it, like Fleury's learned a couple of things from Lankinen that he's talked about. I think he's got the stuff. And so now it's just a matter of seeing a full season with him where we don't run him into the ground.
Fair enough. I feel like those are kind of the big talking points for the Hawks this week. I mean, I don't really think of anything else that was big on your guys' news schedule for this week.
I mean,
those were the big
Toews
ones.
is off of IR.
Oh yeah, he is off IR as well.
Toews is off of IR. Tyler Johnson is off of IR. Both of them could theoretically play Thursday. That's wild. We're about to have, again, centers. We theoretically have a third line center or even a second line center if he needs to be in Tyler Johnson. Keeping Toews healthy and getting Tyler Johnson back all of a sudden drastically shifts this lineup. And shoot, if Jujhar Khaira is ever able to come off injured reserve, the whole roster changes in a night with that sort of stuff. So I'm very excited to see who plays on Sunday or on Thursday. Isaac Phillips played another game or two with the Hawks this past week. We just sent him back down to Rockford, but it was good to see him come up for another cup of coffee. I mean, I think rest of the year, we're going to see that with rotating young guys just to see who we've got. Yeah, that it's really just roster and injury updates at this point. I think Riley Stillman's off of injured reserve now, which is very exciting. I like Stillman's game a lot. So we'll see what happens Thursday when the Hawks play the Oilers.
Say fun fact, that'll be Duncan Keith's first time back at the United Center playing against the Blackhawks.
And it's also Hjalmarsson's legacy night. So they'll both be in the building. Yeah, it's going to be oh my God, that's going to be electrifying.
That'll be a fun game to be at if you're a fan of the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
We can move on to the Red Wings side of the podcast. The Wings don't really have anything huge of note to talk about. Just a couple pieces. First, William Wallinder wins the CHL Championship with Rogle BK. Like I said, fun fact, the first time they've ever won a major championship like this. This is kind of a cool deal to see a Wings prospect be part of this.
It is, like, good for him. Really excited to see what more he can do in the future.
I mean, it's crazy to me though, like Rogle hasn't won a championship yet, because like there are a lot of NHL caliber players who have came through their team. Like, who is it? Timothy and Liljegren played for them. Sider played for them. The Blackhawks had a guy who played for them. I think it was 2 seasons ago. I'm blanking right now. I don't know. I'm blanking, but like they've had a lot of good players who've played for Rogle BK. Like it's crazy that they've never won the CHL championship before.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that. That is an interesting fun fact.
Arguably the biggest piece of Wings news that we have this week, Elmer Soderblom, he looks like he's going to potentially be a diamond in the rough for Detroit, a guy who went in the 6th round, if you can believe it or not. He's putting up, I think it's like 15 minutes a night right now, playing over in Sweden. Fantastic goal and assist numbers. A guy who looks like he could be like a true NHL Medal 6 player if he pans out. Maybe a bottom 6 guy if he doesn't hit full potential, but this is awesome to have the Wings see a 6th round draft pick looking like they're going to be a piece for the future. Every once in a while, those 6th or 7th round draft picks that you trade, they become something.
I thought that was your like 6th round gem alert. Da, 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 da.
The timing on that was perfect.
That was phenomenal. But no, realistically, like that's what you dream about when you get like that throw-in 6th round pick, right? You're hoping that it becomes him. You're hoping it becomes Hagel or a Zetterberg or a Dots. You know, like it's 1,000,000 to 1 odds, but that's why it's worth getting that extra pick because it could be something.
Could be something. Like I said, I don't really think he's ever going to be like. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar at the NHL level. I project like. Realistically, I think he's going to end up being a guy who plays bottom 6 in the NHL. Is that the worst thing though for a 6th round draft pick?
Phenomenal.
Absolutely not. You're making $1 million a year.
I'm ecstatic that Philip Kurashev, who was a 4th round pick, like looks like he's hopefully going to be a top 9, like would be a cool middle 6 guy for us. Anything less than a 1st round pick realistically is gravy if they make it to the NHL, let alone be a contributing factor.
And the other thing is like Soderblom, if I remember right, he plays center. So like you have another depth center in your pipeline. That's awesome.
That's phenomenal.
Like the Wings still don't, I think, have the other centerman to go with Dylan Larkin, unfortunately, but it's never a bad thing to have pieces in your pipeline that are going to be contributors in 2 or 3 years.
100%.
Sure.
It's a good problem to have when you've got too many pieces.
And then the last piece of Wings news that I really want to talk about, Lucas Raymond, he got interviewed this week about the possibility of going to play for the World Junior Championship. He said he wants to go. I would never want to deny him the chance to play at the World Juniors, but man, does he even really need to play? Everyone knows he's a superstar.
I think it boils down to representing your country. I mean, how many NHL players were begging? I mean, obviously there were things that led to them being like, nah, we're going to pass on this one. But like to play for your country and to represent your country, it's the greatest honor a lot of these kids are ever going to have. And so I get it. Unless you're pushing for a playoff spot, I guess that's my question. If Raymond is your difference maker, if you're on the bubble, and it's like, hey, if we loan you out to World Juniors, that decreases our odds. That's when I would say no. But if you're statistically not going to make the playoffs, there's no reason not to let the kid go.
I mean, David, what's your opinion on him going to play?
It's tough. Like, if we're not making the playoffs, I'm fine with him going and playing for his country. But if, like Tim said, we're on that verge, we're on that cusp, we need him.
Yeah.
And we seem to be closer and closer to making it to that spot. So,
I mean, this kind of ties into that like discussion about Raymond go to World Juniors, but I think this is kind of one that the Wings fan base kind of has to have right now because the trade deadline's coming up. Do the Wings want to make the playoffs this year? Like, I don't see us going deep if we make it. And if we don't, or if we do make it, we're basically saying we're going to take a pass on all the guys at the top end of this draft. And I don't think the Wings are in a position to put themselves out of reach of those guys because I think they're closer than a lot of teams and people are giving them credit for, but I still do think that they're like one or two difference makers away.
Yeah. I mean, that's been my question for sure.
I mean, I personally don't want to see them make it. And it's not because I'm rooting against the Wings, but if I'm looking long-term picture at what the Wings are doing, them making the playoffs this year is not worth a first round exit and then missing on the top end of this draft or even a chance at the top end of this draft. It's just not worth it.
Yeah.
I mean, once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen, right? That's the one kicker. Because I was the negative person last week saying like, hey, wait a minute, there's still clearly a lot of holes on this Wings team. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. That said, the Canadians made it to the finals last year. Like, if you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. I just think if you're realistically, if the playoff window is slim, let him go. Because what he'll gain in that is invaluable versus that he'll gain on Detroit is still, if they're fighting for a playoff spot, that makes up in a lot of ways for what he would gain at World Juniors. But if you don't have that like hunger, that desperation fight, World Juniors at least will give him a meaningful tournament to play in.
Mm-hmm. And like him going to World Juniors, if he really is as dominant at World Juniors as I think he will be,
it'll be offensive.
At that point, I think you really will be able to look at the NHL level and say, yeah, I'm a legit top 6 player. This isn't just like a fluke thing because I'm playing with a superstar like Dylan Larkin. This is a I deserve to be here thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, David, do you want to see them make the playoffs or no?
I mean, this is the problem. At the preseason, we said we were still rebuilding. We're not going to do as great, but we're pulling a Blackhawks a little bit right now where they're looking real good, especially our young guys. Like right now, we're tied 1-1 with Carolina. But I think playoffs would hurt more than help the rebuild.
And like that's, I think, the gold question, like, is what the Wings are going to gain in the playoffs this season, if they make the playoffs, is that worth missing on those guys at the top of the draft? And now, granted, yes, we don't know for sure if the Wings are going to get, one of those guys at the top of the draft, but you're still, when you make the playoffs, you are locking in, I don't need access to those guys.
Yeah.
The other thing is who's going to be free agents this year, because maybe teams will see, oh, the Wings have youth. They're just missing a couple pieces. Why can't I be that piece?
It's a trade-off.
Yeah, and we have the money.
We do have the money. That's the thing.
That could be where you sign your second line center.
Yeah, I think we're going to be getting our second line center, not from the draft. That's coming from a already established player. Probably not a veteran, but someone that's about to hit their prime.
I kind of talked about it on the LA Kings Reddit, weirdly enough, after an episode that we have. I mean, we can kind of talk about it a little bit before we move on, but Gabe Vilardi was a name that was mentioned over on Kings Reddit for the Wings to pick up. He's a guy who's been having a really decent season in the AHL, but he's not at the NHL yet. Could you see us grabbing someone like that, a guy who's putting up, like a 20-ish goal season in the AHL, a guy who's about to make the NHL, and see if we can have a guy like that be the second line center?
I don't know, because he's doing AHL play. Like, yes, he's doing well in the AHL, but that could no.
It goes back to me. Do you end up trading Veleno? I don't see where this. I don't see where this roster has room for him, especially if you're trying to bring in an AHL guy that's projected to be top 6. I don't know where Veleno fits on your team when everyone's healthy.
And like, that's the thing. Like, do they play him as a bottom like a fourth line
Or
center.
can Joe Veleno be that second line center? Because realistically, that's the role you need him to be to fit on this team.
Yeah, like in
And
2
I
years.
feel so bad because like I'm rooting for Veleno too, but that's what it keeps coming back to.
That's such a hard question because the Wings want him to be that center, obviously, but he's got to be better than P.S. Suter to get that. And I don't know if he ever pans out as better than P.S. Suter. And it's hard because P.S. Suter is actually, I think, a really good middle six
I've
centerman.
been very,
Yes, he
I
is.
agree with you 100%.
Like he hasn't been flashy on the scoreboard, but like his overall play has been very consistent, very good.
He
doesn't make
the
a ton
puck
of
to the right
mistakes.
spot. Yep.
And it's hard because like you look at Joe Veleno and you're like, this kid has potential. He usually has like a year of transition and then he dominates the league. So you're waiting to see like, when's he going to dominate the NHL?
I guess that's my thing. Like you're looking at this guy in the Kings, AHL team, and it's like, well, let's take a shot on him. Like, does that mean that the shot is passed on? Like, I don't know. You see where I'm at with that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's which one do you think has more value long term? And it's hard because
I
like
don't
Joe
know.
Veleno proved it last week that he can hang in like the NA or the AHL and be a great player.
Mhm.
So do we already have somebody of like a Gabriel Velarde's caliber in our system already?
That's my thing. I mean, I almost wonder if the season you do start to dwindle and lower those, bring him up, give him top 6 minutes, make him your second line center, or like,
Oh shoot, Alex Turcotte's there.
yeah, Turcotte's there too. So they've got
Mhm.
Byfield, they've got Turcotte, like they've got a wild combination of centers. Like,
And they still have Kopitar.
yeah, exactly. And Kopitar's realistically, God, we went through an era, Bergeron, Kopitar, Toews, of just Zetterberg, of just like absolute legend centers for a
Mhm.
period of time. But no, like I almost feel like give Veleno a shot to see if he can be that, because otherwise I think he could be a realistic trade piece to help get that center.
I don't know. I thought it was really interesting, something to think about because
For sure.
the Wings are in a really hard spot right now, but I feel like they are kind of just 2 pieces away from being a real playoff team.
What's stopping us from spending a little money in the offseason?
That's valid.
Who are some upcoming free agents is the other question.
That's an even bigger question of, because you don't want to go out and just sign a big, free agent because they're the one available.
Let's take a look. Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah, bring Gino over.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine? He's gonna hang out in Detroit for a bit. No, it's tough because you've got realistically next year you'll have Edvinsson over here, so Mort Seider will have a year under his belt for the league. You'll still have Nick Leddy. Philip Hronik will have another year of just development on the defensive side. Realistically, I think with Edvinsson and what's the other, is Soderblom? Wait, which?
What are you talking about?
Not Lindstrom. Who's the other defensive prospect that's tearing it up right now?
Yeah, Gustav Lindstrom.
Yeah, that's the one.
Lindstrom's not tearing it up, is he?
But he's playing like a very good like bottom 4
But
pick.
he's
Like,
he's not a prospect though.
not at this point, but I mean like he's still got time to grow because he's only had I think one full season over here.
Yeah.
And like Danny DeKaiser comes off the books. That's $5 million to go spend
Yeah.
somewhere.
You
can get a very good defenseman or centerman for $5 million.
Oh, I think your defense potentially gets shored up with Edvinsson. And then if you're able to put that free agent money towards a stable, actual second line center, fantastic.
Ooh, Thomas Hurdle's going to be a free agent.
Ooh, that'd be tempting. I can't even lie.
Hurdle would be injured, but I
lots of
wonder
old
if he would
dudes.
want to leapfrog Larkin.
Lots of old dudes. Ryan Strome.
Straight from
Hurdle would be an
Matthews.
interesting one. Hurdle would be a really interesting one.
Right now, it sounds like you're the most interesting.
Max Domi.
I don't know. I think I'd rather take Hurdle at that point, though.
I'd
Yeah.
rather have Valeno or anybody. I'm not a big Max Domi fan.
But I don't know.
Hurdle-
It's an interesting conversation, like to think about. The fact that the Wings in 2 or 3 years might really be trying to compete again, and they're waiting to see like can Valeno take over as that second line center.
Mhm.
And if he doesn't, they've got the money to go buy one.
Yes, we do.
We can move on though to the flashback and the flash forward
Yeah.
segment.
Did
We already
flashback.
did the flashback at the start of this
We're
episode.
playing ahead.
We can do the flash forward now at this point. So the Hawks have 3 games coming up this week. They have the Edmonton Oilers on Thursday. They have the Philadelphia Flyers on Saturday, and then they have the Tampa Bay Lightning on Sunday.
That's not great.
Oof, oof.
Cool.
Cool.
The Edmonton Oilers have been such a weird team this season.
We've shut down the Oilers on many of the occasions that we've faced them. Realistically, we lost to them back in November, but we did win our last game against them. I think realistically we can win. I'm having a weird optimistic week. I think we beat the Oilers. I think we beat the Flyers, and I think we lose to Tampa.
Okay. that makes sense.
The Flyers just aren't. I don't know. I feel like we solved the Carter Hart problem. Not we, but like the league figured out Carter Hart. And I just don't think that they right now. I don't think they're healthy and gelling. The Lightning, of course, is. We're not going to beat the Lightning. They are the infinitely better team, and I hate it. But we're not going to beat them. But yeah, I see no reason why we don't beat the Oilers. We've been able to shut down McDavid. Take 2, lose 1.
Shane Gostisbehere's been having kind of a really good bounce back season for the Flyers.
Wait a minute, is Gostisbehere on the Flyers?
Yeah,
Still?
yeah, he's still with the Flyers. And like it's crazy because I remember saying during the offseason last year, I wanted the
He's
Wings
with
to
the-
pick.
He's
Are you
with the
sure?
Arizona Coyotes.
Are you sure?
Ooh,
I'm positive.
Coyotes.
I gotta look this up now. I could have
I'm
swore he was still with
telling
the
you, brother.
Flyers.
He won't even have a stadium to play in next year. Jesus.
They've got a college stadium.
What is it, like 5,000 people or whatever it
Yeah,
is?
the Coyotes are playing at University of Phoenix Online. They're an esports team now.
What team was it? I think it was one of the AHL teams. Threw some shade their way when they made that announcement. They're like,
Yeah.
congratulations, our arena holds 8,000.
I'd rather play in Rockford with the Ice Hogs. They've got a killer arena compared to.
God.
But yeah,
The Griffins have dollar beer, dollar hot dog nights. Come on.
man, there's nothing better than an AHL hockey game. I'll tell you that right
Oh my
now.
God, so much fun.
But yeah, Gostisbehere's with the Coyotes, so he could be having a great season, but nobody would know.
They don't have cameras in the arena.
Rasmus Ristolainen is in on the Flyers now, right?
Yeah.
They've got I feel like a lot of moving parts happened with Philadelphia, but they've got a lot of people injured. I think Kevin Hayes is still injured. I don't know. I think
I teach a kid who's a Flyers fan.
Well,
I
they
was
have
able to
Claude
talk
Giroux
smack
still,
to good
right?
voice.
yeah, they've still got Giroux's been phenomenal.
There's rumors that they might try to move him though.
And it makes sense. Giroux's been phenomenal. Couturier has been hurt a lot of this year. That's also hurt them a lot. Being without Hayes, being with Ristolainen's been hurt for a bit. They just haven't been able to gel. I don't know. We can beat them.
I wouldn't put it past the Hawks to beat the Flyers, to be honest. And like I said, if you can shut down Edmonton's McDavid and Draisaitl, the team doesn't really have much else going for it.
It's a shame because I really like Kyler Yamamoto. Like, he's got a really cool game. That's a guy that like I've eyed in the past of like, what if we picked up Yamamoto? Because I think he can play. He started as a center. But again, it's Edmonton, so he's not fulfilling his potential. It's a weird team.
But I think that's a very decent week for the Hawks coming up. Like you said, Tim, I think Edmonton's very winnable. I think the Philadelphia game is very winnable. Tampa Bay is Tampa Bay for however many years we have left.
Yeah, however long we have to put up with that until the wheels fall off.
Which they'll probably find some stud to replace Steven Stamkos and Nikita Kucherov. Just be competitive forever.
Yeah.
Detroit has, I think it's 3 games. Well, no, 2 games coming up this week if you don't count the game going on tonight versus Carolina.
So the game tonight is 1-1 going into the third.
Okay.
Speaking of Tampa, they play Tampa on Friday, and then they play the Florida Panthers on Saturday. So they're going to Florida for 2 games. This is double L's, boys. I got no confidence.
Florida Panther, yeah.
There's something on the water in Florida with the Florida teams just doing real good.
I want to root for Detroit, but I got to be honest. I'm expecting back-to-back L's.
What was the line in the new Spider-Man movie? If you expect the worst.
I can't remember.
Oh, God. But yeah.
If you expect the worst, you won't be disappointed. I don't know. I haven't seen it.
I think that's what it is. Thank you, Zendaya.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really rough week for the Wings. I don't see any sort of win, and I'm honestly surprised that they're 1-1 with the Carolina Hurricanes right
and we're
now.
out shooting them, too.
That's even crazier.
Yeah, they're up here 20-16 in shots. We've had 5 odd man rushes. I mean, Bertuzzi and Zadina both had breakaways that they just missed.
I've got Sider and Raymond in tonight on my fantasy team. Let's go, boys.
Well, Carter Rowney scored our goal. He's on fire. He's in his last 4 games.
Due for 1.
3 points in his last 4 games. Good for you, Carter Rowney.
But yeah, that's the Wings schedule for this upcoming week. I don't have anything on the league front to talk about yet, but we will have stuff as soon as this trade deadline is over. There's going to be a ton to talk about.
Oh yeah, I'm very excited about that.
But yeah, that's going to be it for our show tonight. Unless anybody else has anything else to add.
I don't know. If you're interested in contract negotiations and keeping an eye on how behind the scenes sports works, follow the MLB lockout. This is fascinating because unlike an NHL lockout where I'm just sad all the time, I like baseball, but it's not going to kill me to wait a bit. So I just get to go and do a deep dive into the CBA and what the 2 bargaining sides are looking for. I don't know. It's fun if you want to look at sports as contracts, like I kind of do.
I have a good friend who's a huge baseball fan, so he's dying right now.
Oh yeah, a lot of people are in hell.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, that's gonna be our show for tonight. As always, we want to thank you guys for tuning in and watching and listening to the show. At the end of the day, this show is for you guys. It's a fan cast. It's by fans for fans. Everybody gets to just say what they want and have their honest takes. There's no corporate sponsorship or anything like that. So you get real opinions from fans and kind of well-informed fans who actually have the ability to look at the games and the teams partially, which is awesome. That's kind of what we're aiming for on this show. You have people from outside of both organizations who can kind of bring you back down a little bit when you start getting too high.
That said, P-Quads, if you want to sponsor us, I'll say whatever you want. I'll do it.
We did crap on the Arizona Coyotes tonight, but we forgot to do our weekly Buffalo crap on. So Buffalo sucks.
Thank God. Yeah. Thank you for picking that up.
But again, we do appreciate everybody who tunes in and watches the show or listens to the show. We really appreciate it. If you liked what you saw or watched or heard, feel free to give us a like, follow, share, retweet, whatever the social media currency is of choice on the platform that you find us on. We really appreciate it. It helps us grow, helps us spread. You can find us on Twitter at StickBladePod. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. I mean, we're on Apple Podcasts. So whatever your podcast platform is of choice, feel free to give us a like, follow, share, whatever the social media currency is of choice on that platform. We really appreciate it. But that's going to be our show for tonight. As always, you guys take care, stay safe, take care of each other, and we will catch you guys all back here next week on another edition of the Stick Blade Podcast. Catch you guys later.